On February the 6th, a devastating earthquake of 7.8 on the Richter scale hit Turkey and Syria at 4:17 in the morning local time. In a matter of hours, it became clear that it had caused a human tragedy. The figures are heartbreaking. The death toll has surpassed 57,000 people. Over 500,000 citizens were evacuated in Turkey alone. The authorities said that around 180,000 buildings have collapsed or severely damaged, and around 2 million people have taken refuge in temporary shelters. Some 20 million people in Turkey alone were affected by the quake, while the United Nations added that around 9 million people were affected in Syria. As a leading international broadcaster, Euronews teams arrived almost instantly at the affected areas to reveal the hard truth to the entire world.
Olağanüstü hal ilan etme kararı aldı.
Me dhjetra dhe me qindra viktima, besohet nën këto gërmada.
Hello, I am Franco Egro from Euronews Albania in Tirana, and together with my Euronews colleagues from France, Bulgaria, Georgia, Serbia, Albania and Romania, we'll revisit this dramatic event, the impact it had on the life of people and the unprecedented wave of solidarity shown. I am joined by Mustafa Bag in Lyon, France, Irina Ivanova in Sofia, Bulgaria, Nuka Kekalia in Tbilisi, Georgia. Ardit Hoxha is in Lach in central Albania, Bojan Brkic in Belgrade, Serbia, and Maria Moish in Bucharest, Romania. Thank you all for joining me. Mustafa Bag is a Turkish journalist who works for Euronews in Lyon. He is an experienced reporter who has covered many wars and gone through many complex and complicated situations during his long career. But nothing had prepared him for what he saw and experienced in Turkey.
Indeed, I don't know how to start, but it's really, really difficult because in my career, as you mentioned, I covered many war zones, many places, many disasters. But this happened in my city. It affected my family. It affected my parents. It affected my people. So yeah, I was there right after my colleagues from other countries. We also arrived there with my colleague from Paris. Unfortunately, Antakya was really damaged, partially or totally. I couldn't realize Antakya. This is the city where my childhood has passed. I find my parents. They were in the tent, but they were one of the thousands of others. Let's say tens of thousands of others. Yes, I'm war correspondent. I was witnessing people's drama, people's tragedy, but this was the first time that I find myself inside this situation. This was really hard, Franco.
I can imagine that, Mustafa. Euronews Bulgaria was the first to send its reporters to Turkey. They provided valuable coverage not only for its domestic audience, but also for other Euronews services.
Bulgaria was the first country to offer help to Turkey after the earthquake on 6th of February. gelmediler yavrum. Hala gelmediler.
On the same day, Bulgarian teams organized themselves in just a few hours and headed to Turkey. In Adana, Bulgarian and Turkish rescuers worked together. They tried to save even the memories of the trapped people, like this love letter. More than 70 firefighters from all over Bulgaria have helped in Besni after locals, in their desperation, have stopped their convoy with one request only: for help. Until recently, the peaceful town has been echoing with the sound of excavators, ambulances, and prayers. A silence falls only with the emerging hope that a survivor cries out for help.
What we saw was rather emotional.
5 days after the earthquake, with the Polish firefighters, they managed to pull out a woman from the rubble. She was the only survivor of her entire family. In Hatay, Bulgarian mountain rescue volunteers have saved at least 7 lives, and maybe many more without knowing it.
I have never imagined that such a thing could happen.
They started to think that the dogs could pull out the dead alive.
The rescuers don't give up even when everyone else tells them there are no survivors. Because of this, they found a woman still breathing under the rubble 84 hours after the quake, and Hera managed to save a 5-member family.
I just raised my hands with both thumbs up.
People were very happy. They greeted us, hugged us, thanked us, and that's how the day ended.
For these rescuers, dogs are the real heroes and part of the family.
We are together in extremely dangerous situations, and the life of one depends on the life of the other. We want to thank our families, our wives who support us. Who support us always.
And now, from the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia, I am joined by my colleague Irina Ivanova. Irina, you reported from Adana and from other affected areas. The distress and sadness was obvious there. But as an experienced journalist, looking back, what was it that impressed you the most?
Yeah, every single day for a week, we have traveled for several hundred kilometers a day to reach the most affected areas beside Adana, Gaziantep, Nurda, and you see nothing but destruction, death. You hear nothing but the ambulances, the heavy machinery, and people waiting and crying the names of their loved ones. And despite all this horror, I have never met such kind and sympathetic people in my life. They offered us help, tea, it was freezing cold in Besni, food, shelter. For example, in Besni, a young woman that had lost almost everything. Her family, her mother, her father, her home. She came to me to offer me help, to ask me if I'm okay and to hug me. And it's difficult for me to describe you the atmosphere. You hear these 2 mosques, you see all the destruction around you, you smell and inhale the dust of the destroyed buildings, and all these people that just have stopped and pray for their loved ones. And another example that I'll never forget, a story that I'll never forget, is about a man and his 3-year-old daughter with such big, beautiful and innocent eyes that had seen so horrible things no child should ever experience. We have offered them food and money, but this man just reached it into his pocket and said, no, I have money, I have everything. Till yesterday, I also had a wife and 5 children. And now I have only nothing but her. And I'm here for my daughter to see you, so I can make her happy some way. And to invite you for a cup of tea, to have some tea with us. And there is a local proverb With the first cup of tea, you're an honored guest. With the second cup of tea, you're a friend. And with the third one, you're already a member of the family. So it was very emotional.
Unbelievable human stories, Irina. The most important activity during the first hours was to save the lives of those under rubble. Rescue teams worked for hours on end. As Euronews Georgia's report explains, rescue dogs were of paramount importance as they identified many trapped people and led the rescue teams to them.
Right now, a search and rescue dog, Tinto, finds a man hiding in the rubble. This is a field exercise for Tinto and his friend Amy, when they are trained to find people under the rubble, avalanches or landslides. It was under the rubble in Adıyaman, Turkey, when Tinto saved a man, working along with Georgian rescue teams.
One of the locals came up to us saying that a living person was still stuck in the rubbles, which used to be his home. With the help of Tinto, we tried to determine the approximate area in the rubble where this person could have been. As soon as we got to the rubble, Tinto found out the location of the person almost instantly. We rescued the person and managed to get her to the hospital in time.
Georgian rescue teams left for Turkey on February 6. Immediately after the reports emerged about the devastating earthquake. During their 18-day work in Adıyaman and Antakya regions, they managed to save several people and helped many those who lost their loved ones in the ruins.
We cooperate with the UN headquarters since we had signed up online beforehand. We also coordinated our efforts with the Turkish side. Every day we received new orders, the locations where we were needed, places where we had to engage in rescue efforts. We evaluated the situation on the ground, gathered statistics and reported back to the headquarters.
Many of them now say that it was their hardest mission and believe that one should experience how it feels to save somebody.
During one of the rescue operations, a 6-story building had collapsed. We managed to cut through the concrete in order to rescue a woman. This was the hardest rescue mission we had to undertake. When a person spends a number of hours under rubble, for example 75 hours, and you manage to rescue that person all safe and sound, it is a special feeling, a feeling one should definitely experience.
This is a medal Tinto was awarded for its valiant effort. Now it also knows how it feels to save a life.
And now from Tbilisi, Georgia, I am joined by Nuka Kekalia. Nuka, my question is, how did the Georgian people experience the earthquake in Turkey? And how significant was the human solidarity shown towards the Turkish people?
Yes, it was absolutely a great shock for Georgian people to wake up early in the morning and to understand that devastating news that was coming from Turkey. And the quakes were so strong in Turkey that they were felt also in some Georgian regions for several minutes, so that many people came out in the streets and were waiting for what would happen. But fortunately, they were not strong enough to cause any serious damage in the country. Immediately after the news started spreading, under the decision of Georgian government, tens of Georgian rescue workers left for Turkey to help those who were in need. And when they arrived there, they were saying that it was their hardest mission because it was very difficult for them to see so many people dying, so many stuck under the rubble, so many of them suffering. Fortunately, there have not been any such a big earthquakes in Georgia in the recent years, and that caused such a big damage. But it is natural that now many in Georgia fear that what would happen here if such a catastrophic natural disaster hits Georgia as well. So especially it relates to the capital city, Tbilisi, where there are quite many old buildings, many of them built back in the 60s of the last century, and many much more earlier. So now people are urging the government to check if these buildings are safe for the population and to ensure that all the measures are taken for the safety of population in case such thing happens to the country as well.
Thank you very much, Nuka, for your comments. Albania experienced a tragic earthquake 3 years ago, which killed 51 persons, injured over 3,000, and caused severe infrastructure damages. So, here in this country, we know well what an earthquake means. The Albanian rescue teams very soon reached Antakya and contributed to saving lives there.
3 days after the devastating earthquake in southeastern Turkey destroyed dozens of entire areas, the team of Euronews Albania was in one of the most damaged cities.
Euronews Albania team just arrived in Antakya, in the region of Hatay. It is one of the most damaged cities with thousands of dead people. Some of them is believed that are still under these ruins that are behind me.
What you could see in Antakya on the first Thursday after the earthquake was only smoke, collapsed buildings and dead bodies being pulled from the ruins, people sitting on the streets, and some of them started living in tents after they escaped alive but remained homeless. Some of these Turks who were left without a home also came to Albania.
The shaking has been continuous, and the fear that another strong earthquake could repeat itself made us decide to leave our country. We came here because a friend suggested to us. He found us this apartment, for which we pay rent.
This solidarity of Albanians to host Turks fleeing from the earthquake areas is a kind of gratitude for what Turkey did for Albania in 2019. In the earthquake of November 26th, Turkish teams were the first to arrive in Durrës and Thuman, and the new neighborhood in Lach was rebuilt with funds from Turkish government.
As mentioned in this report, Turkey is a country that has contributed the most to the reconstruction process following the 2019 earthquake in Albania. Lach was a town severely damaged, but was reconstructed with Turkish aid. My colleague Ardit Hoxha is precisely there. All for you to see there, Ardit.
Yes, Franco, I am in the city of Lach. As you can see behind me, buildings, it's almost half of this city is rebuilt by funds donated by the Turkish government. Besides this, the Turkish government donated funds to rebuild a new hospital here in Albania to afford and to help Albanians affording the consequences of the earthquake that we passed on 2019.
Ardit, we saw you in the report that we previously broadcast. You covered the Turkish earthquake, but at the same time, 3 years ago, you covered the Albanian earthquake. What is it that remains more vivid in your memory while covering these two important events?
Yes, Franco, is it true? But describing both situations, the earthquake in Albania and the earthquake in Turkey is difficult. And more difficult is to compare the two situations. Is it true that in Albania we suffered from the earthquake and we had some people dead and many others homeless? But comparing it with the catastrophic and the apocalyptic situation in Turkey, it is difficult, because what I have seen, especially in Antakya, it is really hard to be described. So people in the streets and the homeless and many others that the rescue teams kept them out without life. So it was very difficult to report on that kind of situation, and and it was very hard to bring us the report to the Albanian TV watchers.
Thank you, Ardit. Serbia, fortunately, has had no experiences with earthquakes, as the last recorded one occurred 100 years ago. Nonetheless, following the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, the authorities are paying more attention to the quality of the building constructions, as Euronews Serbia reports.
Ivana's apartment is undergoing thorough renovation before she moves into it. The goal of the adaptation was not only new floors, walls, sanitary ware and tiles, but also a new, more functional layout. Once separate rooms were turned into a kind of open space by tearing down the wall.
That was the reason why I demolished this partition wall. Partition walls can always be demolished. That is very important. I consulted with the architect because it was important to me which wall I could demolish and which wall I couldn't demolish.
Not everyone is as responsible as Ivana, so some tenants are ready to tear down load-bearing walls for their wishes, despite the catastrophic consequences for the entire structure and ceilings. Silvana prevented just such a collapse when, a few days ago, she found a load-bearing wall in her apartment in Vračar collapsing on the first floor of the residential building.
When I asked if they knew that the load-bearing wall was a load-bearing wall, these are project people who know their job. The reasoning was that they knew, but that there was no plan to demolish the whole thing, but only to break through, which in my view, at the time, it didn't seem that way.
A permit for the demolition or relocation of a load-bearing wall or the creation of an opening within it requires obtaining a permit for the execution of works from the competent authorities.
When work is carried out, such as replacing carpentry, changing parquet tiles, etc., these are works for which the building manager must be notified and a notice must be posted at the entrance to the building. And in every building, someone always thinks if you do something, it will fail in the other flat. Something will happen, they protest, then they come. I explain to them what it is about, they can enter the apartment and take a look, but then everything is resolved.
According to the managers of the residential buildings, there is an extremely small number of building inspectors in the field who, as they say, do not even have a field vehicle. We tried to talk to them about illegal construction modifications, but they didn't have time for a statement.
I'm joined now by my colleague Bojan Brkic of Euronews Serbia in Belgrade. Bojan, as we said, there have been no recent earthquakes in Serbia, but there have been earthquakes in neighboring Croatia, Montenegro, Northern Republic of Macedonia and other countries. How were these earthquakes experienced by the Serbian public, by the Serbian people?
Well, as you said, Serbia is not seismically active territory, and the biggest ever, the strongest ever earthquake happened in 1922 near Belgrade. It was only 5.9 on the Richter scale, but the citizens are afraid of earthquakes. It's a natural fear, and we do feel everybody else's earthquake. I can tell you that my first experience with earthquakes when I was 5 years old and spent the night in the car was when Bucharest was devastated in 1977, and we felt it in Belgrade pretty bad. And the people are vigilant because they know that, as we saw in our package, the construction standards, even if when they exist, they are sometimes destroyed afterwards by reparation and modification works, and even some milder earthquakes can cause significant damage. So this is why people are always worried when they feel earthquakes that happen around us.
I can assure you, Bojan, that the same problem happens in Albania as well, and probably not only in our two countries. But my next question would be, what about the feeling of solidarity shown by the Serbian people towards the Turkish people, in this case, following this devastating earthquake? And in the previous experiences, as you mentioned, the level of solidarity shown by the Serbian people towards the other neighboring countries?
Well, earthquakes are natural disasters, and there's very little you can do to prevent or stop them from happening. But the only thing one can do is be helpful to the people who are stricken by earthquakes. We know that from the experience here. In 1963, there was a devastating earthquake in Skopje, the capital of North Macedonia. In 1979, there was a devastating earthquake in Montenegro. We all lived in the same country, Yugoslavia, back then, and people paid from their salaries for years and decades to repair and reconstruct those cities. And they managed in Skopje to reconstruct it within one single year. Now, with Turkey, Serbia reacted by sending two specialized rescue teams with special dogs, specially trained dogs, and they spent a couple of weeks in Turkey until they were needed, and then they came back. So also we collected some aid for the devastated areas in Syria. So basically, solidarity is the key word when it comes to earthquakes.
Thank you very much indeed, Bojan. The Turkish city of Antakya was among the worst hit. Euronews Romania reported from that small town. We warn the viewers that they may find some of the footage distressing.
In less than 2 minutes, the lives of the people living here in Antakya have turned into a heap of rubble. I see here a sofa, chandeliers, pillowcases. And now all the rubble is being loaded onto trucks and taken away. But what's more painful is that underneath this rubble there are still people. People believed to be dead and whose bodies have not yet been pulled out. It is not an earthquake. It is something much more disastrous than an earthquake. It is something never seen or experienced before. There is no stone left upon another stone. Not 10,000s, 100,000s, million dead. We are coming up short on resources and we need to get these bodies out. That boy has simply been standing there for minutes. He certainly has lost family members to the earthquake. We'll have to find our loved one, bury him. We also need to see who we can find to drive him away. My family used to live here on the 3rd floor. The block just collapsed. My aunt and 2 other girls got out, but my uncle remained in there. Now they pulled him out dead.
We are trying to help the Syrian family, who they are out of Hatay, to reach their family, because even the survivors they cannot, because they don't know Turkish, they cannot explain themselves, or the family who they are out of Hatay, they cannot send us the address of their family, also because of the language, because they don't know the address. We are just trying to help them to reach their family.
The Romanian fire brigade has resumed the search for possible victims who might be under the rubble. It's already been 90 hours since the earthquake had struck. Such actions are carried out on a regular basis. On this occasion, the firefighters are being assisted by the Turkish army. We love you. We love you as well. Take care. We love you. You are our dear ones.
Indeed, heartbreaking stories. Maria Moish is live now from the capital of Romania, Bucharest. Maria, we followed your report, indeed heartbreaking stories, but I just wanted to ask you, what impressed you most during your days of reporting in Antakya and other areas?
To be honest, I got emotionally every time I see this story, even that they are my stories. What shocked me the most was that how an entire city, once a beautiful touristic city, collapsed in less than 2 minutes. I'm talking about Antakya, a city, to make you an idea, almost as big as Tirana. I haven't seen at least one street with a building that was not affected. I stayed there for almost 5 days. I've seen sorrow, people searching for their loved ones. They didn't lose their hope. And because of the earthquake, the city, everything in the city was broken, no longer access to electricity, to water. Even the gas stations were closed, and people there fight for survival eventually.
Maria, one more question. This is, as far as I know, your second experience in terms of covering these situations, because 3 years ago, in November 2019, you covered for Romanian television the earthquake in Albania. But nothing can prepare you for covering these dramatic events.
Yes, I've been there. I felt a shock, 5.6, and I remember like it was yesterday how Romanian rescue teams jump off the rubble. It was horrific, and what I wanted it was to go home from Albania on that period. But of course, we cannot compare what happened in Albania with the situation in Turkey this year. But what I've learned, firstly, from my journalistic experience, but as a person living in a capital exposed to seismic risk, is that not nature kills people, but buildings do. This is my manifest, this is my message.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria, for your message. Earthquakes as natural disasters do take lives. They turn into human catastrophes. But undoubtedly, human life and human solidarity prevails. Mustafa Bag in Lyon, what is your message to our viewers as a Turkish journalist who experienced personal loss from this devastating earthquake?
Thank you very much indeed. I can tell you that, it's been exactly 2 months. But this is, I can tell you that it's been the darkest days of my life since the 6th of February took our loved ones. I can tell you from my family, we lost around 50 people dead and more than 100 wounded. Not as a journalist, but as a person from Antakya, I can tell you that thanks to those who came to rescue our people, one life, if you rescue one life, you make one family, one street, one village happy, you know. So I would like to thank to those people who came, thanks to Israelis, thanks to Armenians, thanks to Georgians, Bulgarians, Greeks, Macedonians, and Northern Macedonia, many other countries, those who came to help us. I just watched my friends' packages from the side. It's really emotional for me now. It's really, really difficult. I can't even speak because I just recalled those days when I was there. When I tried to evacuate my father and my mother and my sister, I couldn't find a taxi. I couldn't find a car. It took us almost 2 days to leave the city, Antakya. Though they are they were really in need of help, to be treated, because when my father was trying to leave the home, they were living in ninth floor. So when they were trying to leave, all those things collapsed on him. His shoulder was broken, his leg was broken. My mother was really, she lost the ability to walk. So finally, they left the building, but I don't want to make it very long, just to make it short. In Antakya and in the region, not only Antakya, but in other cities as well, we have thousands, tens of thousands of people lost. As Maria said, that it's not nature, it's the building, it's infrastructure that kills the people. Just one more thing. In Turkey, politics should not overshadow the tragedy of the people. Now, we will have elections in 1.5 months. Unfortunately, I see on the TVs the earthquake is on the second now. The first is Unfortunately, elections, so there are many things to say, but thanks to those who share our hard times, and thanks to them who came and helped us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mustafa, for just wanted to underline on behalf of all my colleagues that words cannot describe the sorrow you experience, but at the same time, we all want to underline the message that human life prevails. Thank you, Mustafa. And my sincere thanks go to my colleagues Irina Ivanova from Euronews Bulgaria, Nuka Kekalia from Euronews Georgia, Ardit Hoxha from Euronews Albania, Bojan Brkic from Euronews Serbia, and Maria Mojs from Euronews Romania. And this is all we had time for today. Until the next program, a warm goodbye from me, Franco Egro, from Euronews Albania in Tirana.